So, good evening, Gary Edward Gettle, psychologist, psychotherapist. Today it's Monday evening. There's a storm that I think is just no still going on. I had to close the window because it's stormy weather. It happens sometimes. So it's 2nd of June. Wow, it's the summer. 2025. And I'm here in my office in Lausanne, Switzerland. And this evening, I'm going to talk about life's little frustrations. And as usual, I'll talk a bit about myself, where I'm at, and also why I'm motivated to talk about this evening. So Monday is also a fasting day, so I'm not eating, and that's also a bit frustrating in itself. And I drank a big black coffee, which I don't like at all. But that's part of my challenge for these 10 weeks is to drink on Mondays a black coffee and see if I can get to like it better. But what started me thinking today was that at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm laying down, sleeping, and not quite woken up yet, and a team of workers arrive outside my house. And facing me is quite this big slope, and that slope had lots of grass on it. And they came and they started with these weed whackers, electric, no, not electric ones, or petrol ones, and a whole team of them started cutting the grass at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is legal in Switzerland. And I'm sure that it's legal because they wouldn't be doing it otherwise. But it's a bit unpleasant to wake up to that. So I started to think about the small irritations of life and what does that mean and how it functions, and more of that later. So Monday in the morning I do administration, which was fine, and I see a few patients. And then this evening I run over to the gym, and lo and behold, I had other experiences that work together with these small frustrations. So I have 4 machines that I use, plus the, I forget what it's called now, tapis roulant in French, it'll come to me again, treadmill. And so the first machine was free, usually is, not used much. No, there was a machine that's used a lot, and it was free, and it was great. So I went on it first, so it was good. And then I went on the other machine, which is usually free, and that was great. And then I went on something that helps with the back, which was fine. And then I went on the treadmill for 10 minutes. And I noticed on the treadmill that the 2 machines I wanted to go back to, the one for the waist and the one for the arms, were taken. And that's a bit problematical because not only were they taken, they were both taken by groups, by couples. I would say a couple. There's a couple of guys on one, which could mean that they sort of like slowly chat and then they do an exercise and then they change. And then another one was 2 girls, again chatting and slowly doing these exercises. I thought this is going to be very frustrating because I don't have much time because I've got to come back and do this. And so I did the treadmill, and then I walked up to the 2 girls and asked if they're going to be very long. And the girl said, no, I'm nearly finishing. So I sat down, I waited, and 30 seconds, a minute later, they were free. That wasn't too bad. And I thought, oh, this other exercise with 2 guys, it's not going to work. I might have to give it up. And I sort of came off one machine, and I went towards the other one, and they finished. A miracle. A miracle. And then a 3rd machine, which somebody was blocking for like half an hour, I finished the 2nd machine, and he finished that. So I managed to do everything. So I got thinking again, this is really about small frustrations and small benefits, and what does it mean, and how do we function? And it reminded me of a story that I think I've told you before, but I'll tell you again because it's quite relevant to what I'm talking about today. And I'll explain later, of course. So one day last year, I was walking to work, and at that time, I would have very, very often pain in my shoulders and my neck. That's where I carry a lot of tension. And that morning I was rather tense. No idea which particular reason it was. And I was coming to work and I was about to cross a road and I noticed a car and I was just off the pavement, went step back onto the pavement, the car passed, no danger, no threat, no worry. But what happened is my muscles started to block and they were blocked and they were painful and it didn't release. And so I carried on crossing the road and I was going back to work and I started to reflect, what has happened? What happened that suddenly I'm in huge pain and it's still there for something that usually I don't even notice? And so it got me thinking that what has happened? What was the process? The process was I saw a potential danger, very potential. I took a step back. So clearly my body reacted to the danger. So there's adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, and other sort of reactions that were happening. Small reaction. But that small reaction was enough to finish blocking the muscles and to carry on for quite a long time afterwards. I have no idea how long it lasted for. But what happens when we have small frustrations that make us very angry? Small frustrations that start big rows. Because one thing that I find in couple therapy is often that they come to me and they start to complain about the other. And what they complain about is really no big deal. Not in itself. Not big things that, someone has spent everybody's savings or someone sleeping with someone else. Or, I mean, yes, these things happen. And these things do create big crises in a couple. But often it's someone has left the door open, someone doesn't turn the taps off, someone has spent some money but without checking with the other one, so they have a problem for the end of the month, but it gets sorted out quite easily because it's only a relatively small sum of money. And so why is it that these small things, which at the beginning of a relationship are fine, oh, she's a bit untidy, or he's always late, and well, it's just the way that he is. And these things, beginning of a relationship in the honeymoon period, they're fine. But later on in the couple, it's not fine. It's a reason for a divorce. It's a reason to beat the other one up. It's the reason not to sleep at night. These small things. Now, what is happening? What is happening is that, like me, with my muscle that was already tense, that what we're doing, this is the last drop that overflows the vase, the last straw that breaks the camel's back. It's because there's already too much. There's already a problem. Now, where does that problem come from? Why is there so much problem that little things become out of all proportion problematical, stressful, the end of the end, can't cope anymore? Why is that? That's because there is already too much there. Now, there are two different, very, very basic types of situations. There is a type of situation where somebody functions or dysfunctions like that for a very long time. It's something that even maybe in childhood, certainly in adolescence, we start to be hypersensitive, or we get problems with most relationships. Sooner or later, they don't seem to work. We pass from a relation to another, to a job to another, to a training to another. And nothing lasts that long, because sooner or later, the situation or people in the situation upset us so much that they cause problems. But it's relatively general. Now that, I'm afraid to say, it's you. Because we don't have this happening so much, so often, for so long, if it isn't something, unfortunately, that has happened to you in your early youth, in your childhood, that has created this sensitivity and this lack of ability to cope with relatively small problems. And in life, if you have, for instance, one person that irritates a lot of other people, you can say it's them. But if that one person doesn't irritate anybody else, and you've got not one, but another one, another one, another one, and you've got quite a lot of people that don't irritate other people, but they all irritate you, then it's likely to be you. And that is the sad truth, is that it's not your fault. Obviously not your fault, because we're only the product of our environments and our DNA and all sorts of other situations. It's a hugely complex, compound thing, how we come to be the people that we are. But if you are in that situation, then unfortunately you really need to work hard on yourself to find ways to cope better with life that is difficult. Because when people are very, very sensitive, they do obviously get upset by things, because things do affect them more than they affect other people. But that's your challenge in this life, is to find a way to cope with that. So you're not the person I'm talking to at the moment. Okay? So just take what you can out of this. However, just like my notes. If you do not have a habit of being like that, if for most of your life things have happened normally and small irritations have been small irritations, and you go, and there's a traffic jam, you've spilled the coffee. For instance, is that last week I had a problem with my Starbucks coffee. What happened? I went and bought Starbucks coffee, coming to work, a big one, venti, in a carton coffee cup, and I put it to the side. I started working and picked it up to have several drinks, and then about 10-15 minutes after I bought it, I picked it up and I held it firmly, and the cup fell to pieces. How did it fall to pieces? Well, with the new rules, it seems, in Switzerland, things have to be ecological, and they have changed the production of the cups, and there's something with the material for the cup and the glue that they were using, and it just didn't hold. And so the cup literally split. I had coffee over my trousers, I had coffee over my shirt, I had coffee on the floor, I had coffee on some of my papers, and I was irritated, obviously. I wiped up what I could, and because I hadn't started work with a patient yet, because that's why I was doing that, must have been last Monday, I took the cup and I went back to Starbucks and I said, your cup has runneth over, your cup has made a mess. And I was irritated. And they were apologetic. And I said, look, I want some sort of appreciation, compensation, or something for that. They said, well, we can't do that, but we'll make a report and we'll send it to head office. And I came back. And by chance, I had my sports bag with me, and I had a T-shirt that was not totally unacceptable. So I changed my shirt, my trousers, as they were, cleaned up the rest of the mess, and I got down to work, and it passed. It just passed. I wasn't spending my whole day thinking about this awful Starbucks coffee accident, exact. And then the next day, I got an email from some head office saying, we've received your report and we'll reflect on it and we'll get back to you. And for me, that was satisfactory, because I am not living, fortunately, in a situation where things are not working for me on a regular basis. Now, we take things on the other way around. If you are finding that small things are irritating you a lot, small things keep coming around in your mind, and you start thinking this is unfair, or why is this happening, or you start thinking about the world or politics or anything, and your life is upset by these things, then it's a sign, it's a signal that there's something drastically wrong in your life at this moment. So you need to take a step back. Now, could be your work, could be your relationship, could be the fact that now you've got kids. One of the things that I notice in a lot of couples is the couple passes very well when it's just the two of them. They cope with each other, and they do things separately, together, whatever, it works well. And then, bam, a child arrives, and all of a sudden, the whole life changes form, and it stops working. And in that situation, it's not that you want to get rid of the cat, throw the kid out, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is sometimes a reorganization that needs to be made for the couple to reflect together what it means to have a child, and what it means, and what changes are necessary, and how that can function. On the other extreme, you've got the empty nest syndrome, when you have a family and the children grow up and start to leave, and then the couple become just the two face to face again, and they're not used to it, and they're not used to not having the children to focus on and to look after. Or you could arrive at the point of retirement, where suddenly the structure of your life, going to work, and what that means, it's not that anymore, and you don't know what to do with your life, and you again too much together with your partner, which you don't have a habit anymore, and maybe your partner doesn't have habit being with you so much. So these things can be a signal that there is something wrong, that needs to be taken care of. Now, obviously, we have both. I mean, we're talking about extremes here because everything is a bit mixed. Everything is multifactorial. It's not the fact is that it's this and therefore it's only that. But there's often one thing that's more important than the others. And some things it's relatively easy to see where the problem lies. And sometimes it's much more difficult. It's much less obvious. Um, Things that are obvious is that, as I say, if you're used to being a couple and you start to get kids and you start to find that stressful, it's very possible. You'll have a parent that suddenly becomes unwell, and you don't have a habit of looking after that parent, or the parent even comes to live with you. That can be very, very problematical for a couple, that to find a new balance and to cope with the older parent. And know that for my parents, when their parents became, well, my father's mother, she came to live with us very early on, but my mother's mother came to live with us quite late on in her life. And having our grandparents living with us was rather complicated, I can tell you. So that can be something, but you can have something that is much less obvious. I've just said it in the French bit about this Portuguese patient I had. So he was living in Portugal, and he had a girlfriend in Switzerland, and everything was fine. They had this sort of long distance relationship, and it worked quite well. And then she fell pregnant with him. And the times that they saw each other, of course, not over the phone or via the internet, physically, yeah. And he decided to move to Switzerland. They got married. He got his papers. He found, first of all, he found trouble getting work. It didn't help. But there was something else. There was something else that was over and above the fact he had difficulty. He did get work eventually. It was a bit part-time, but it was still work, and it was still, his qualifications were validated. So it wasn't that. It was something else. And I could see that there were things not going well. And again, he was getting very frustrated and very irritated by small things. And so I sort of dug in to the relationship and tried to find out what his life was before he came to Switzerland, what it was like in Portugal. And I discovered that he was what I call a hermit. Now, there are two main types of people. This is my way of assessing people, and it can be so. They're what I call socialites, that are people that like people, that need to be with people, that the more they're with people, the better they are. And there are hermits that really need to have some space by themselves. And he was basically a hermit. In Portugal, he lived alone. He had some friends he saw from time to time. He had contact with his girlfriend through the internet, but he went to work, of course. But he had lots of time he was by himself, and that suited him a lot. She, on the other hand, expected as a couple, normal, classical idea, they'll do everything together. You know, they'll couple, they'll go together, they'll eat together, they'll sleep together, they'll go and see her family together, go and see friends together, and just he didn't cope anymore. And so, fortunately, that was a situation that a solution was quite easy to find. It was easy to find because the baby was born, and she was a bit frustrated because she wanted to go out more and see her friends. I said, well, look, how about you looking after the baby? To the guy. And he said, no problem, no worries. I come from a family that's quite big, and we've had small ones around us, and I'm very comfortable with babies. So what happened eventually was that we organized it that for at least half of the week, he would look after the baby alone in the house. Suited him, was happy to have the baby, didn't disturb his being a hermit. He could do his own thing, change the baby and feed the baby and look after it a bit. But there was a lot of time that the baby would just, I don't know, what's wrong with babies. And his wife, she went out. She was with her friends, she was with her family, she went here, she went there. And we solved the problem. He stopped being irritated by these small things, because what was the basis of his unhappiness, we managed to find, we managed to deal with. And one of the things I find in therapy is that when people start to be angry, upset, frustrated, disappointed, exhausted by small things, this is a warning sign. It's not a huge problem. Quite the opposite. It's something that says, hey, there's something that's not right here. You know, you have the petrol light that comes on that says, hey, you need some more petrol. You don't get angry with the car. If you've got the oil light that comes on that says, hey, we need some more oil, you don't get angry with that. And this is, I don't know, other things. I mean, I'm just using the car analogy because that's simple. There are many things when a sign comes on that says, hey, something needs to be done. And it's not a problem in itself that something needs to be done. It's a support system. It's something that hopefully saves something worse. If you've got an oil light that comes on because your car doesn't have enough oil in the motor and you don't put oil in, then the motor will blow up sooner or later. If the temperature goes up, there's not enough water, it will blow up. So these things actually are protections. So if you start to find that you get irritated at work, you get irritated at home, you get by this and that, then that's great. That's great, because if you can say, hey, there's something in my life that's important that has gone bad or is going bad, and these things that are small, that you get stuck in a traffic jam, somebody takes your driving space, or whatever, and they suddenly have this huge out of proportion reaction that says, hey, there's something drastically wrong in my life that's likely to get worse unless I deal with it. And we can deal with these things, and they're not always black and white, all or nothing. For instance, you know, you're working in your job, you enjoy the colleagues, you enjoy your boss, everything is going, you're working hard, you appreciate it, and then something changes. Maybe a new colleague arrives and she's a bitch. It happens. Or he's someone that's lazy, or he wants to take all benefit from your work, or your boss changes and the new boss doesn't particularly like you and like someone else, and you're never good enough and things like that. So, okay, that's outside reality. That's not you. You cannot change or you can if it's necessary, but it's much more difficult to change yourself to deal with that than it is to accept the fact that it's something on the outside which is really problematical. And if you can do something to change the outside reality, which is always easier than the inside reality, that's from my experience, then maybe you can change something in your job. For instance, I had a guy that was part of a very big organization. He had exactly that. He had a new boss that came that didn't appreciate him, didn't appreciate the way he worked, but he had contacts in other parts of the company. And after a while, with my support, he started to contact the other managers that he had contacts with, because he had this sort of job that went a bit left and right. And he started to talk to them, and not to complain so much about his new boss, but just to say, look, I don't get on with him. I don't fit. He works is very structured and very straightforward, and I'm left and right doing sort of creative things, as you know. And eventually he got one of the other managers to take him on. So he moved to another department and everything was fine. And the small irritations, the more frustrations, everything came down. Couples. I do get couples that obviously, I'm a couple therapist, and they come when it's a problem. So that's my population. And they come and it's not right. It's not working. So yes, like with the Portuguese guy, I found a solution. And the solution worked for both of them, and they were very happy. And again, everything calmed down. Everything was fine. But sometimes the problem is the fact is that they have changed, or they have realized that there's things in their lives that are different. We deal with trans people in our cabinet, and it sometimes happens that somebody arrives at the point in their lives they say, look, I'm not happy in my gender. I need to change. I need to become what I feel deep down is who I am. And sometimes it works in a couple, and just sometimes it says, no, thank you. I don't feel comfortable to be with a transgender person. So they separate. No big deal. Sometimes in very good conditions, but it's just they just decide that it just doesn't work anymore, or something else happens and they decide that they don't fit. My wife loves going for walks every weekend. I need to write. I need to create these things. So we separated a bit because we can't do the same things and both be happy with what we do and the way that we function. And to take that step back, I became very, very unhappy, because I needed to write. I needed the space, and I'm more of a hermit. She's more of a socialite, and she wanted me to be with her all the time. And eventually, I convinced her to find other people to go walking with, to spend time with, because I needed to spend time with myself. I needed to create. I needed to write. And we need to look inside ourselves and say, if I am being frustrated by small things, this is a warning sign. This is a flag. It's a red flag. It's come down. It's a look at your life. Look at what is happening. And there is something somewhere, or maybe some things that are just not working. And we need to cope with that. We need to look at that. We need to find solutions. And maybe the solution can be within the context of your relationship, with your job, and other things. And maybe it isn't. So be creative with yourself, but take that step back, question yourself. This is a warning sign. This is a signal, an alarm signal that something has to change. So go for that. I wish you well. Thank you for your time. As you know, I'm here most of the week. Today's Monday. I'm here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. This Saturday is going to be very interesting. It's how to deal with aggressive people. So don't miss that one. And Sunday is the day of guided meditation, hypnosis. And I don't know what we're going to do next week. Last week was the story of the little bear. If you've not seen it, check it out. It's wonderful. So like, share, I forgot the word now. Subscribe. Get confused there with French. Subscribe. Let your friends know what's going on, and maybe I'll see you tomorrow. So have a great night. Bye for now.